Hello there, my name is Rosa Maria Belisario from the EFWA team Spring 20, and today we're going to be talking about the logging with social media user stories. Specifically, we're going to be talking about the Google implementation, and we're going to see how this implementation was able to be replicated for all other social media platforms. It's super important for you to understand that this video is going to be regarding the backend implementation that we had to do in order to implement these user stories. And my classmate, Eduardo Paredes, he did an entire video explaining the implementation on the front end. And the front end, what it has is the API connections, the ones that actually connect to the social media and retrieve the information. So if you haven't watched that video, I recommend you to stop this video right now, go back and see his video about the front-end implementation, and then come back so everything will have sense. So a quick use case diagram that I want to show you. Basically, what we wanted to do is the user to being able to log in and validate the credentials through Google and not through our database, so they can actually use the Google email or the Instagram or Facebook to log into EFRT. The way in how we decided to do it was by implementing in the front end a login function with an Ajax code that will connect to the API. Then that will call the login controller called Google account login. Then from there we went to the database active data access to being able to send information and validate if the credentials were or not associated with this user. The way in how we did it is that in the database that is right here on the table login, this is acting funny. And the table login, we had a column added for every single email. So what we decided to do was, whenever you did the connection to the social media, the only thing that you need to retrieve is the email. If you retrieve the email, and depending on which social media you are working on, let's say that we're working right now on Google. If you're retrieving the email from Google, Google validate that you are on effectively that person that you said that you are, and that you are able to go through the validation in Google, enter your password and get login. What we ask Google to send us is just the email. Then we take that email, we come to the database, and we double check if that email that Google is sending is actually linked to one of our accounts. If it is, then you're able to log in into EFRT. If it is not, it won't let you log in. It's as simple as that. You don't need to retrieve password, you don't need to retrieve personal information. The only thing that you need is, once the verification is done, you just ask the API for the email, verify if the email is correct, and then you're good to go. So here, right here, we can see that. Actually, let's put this a little bit bigger. So right here, we can see that we have the front end, the login view, then we're fetching the email from Google API, we send them to the Google account login, then that gets sent to the data access class, and then we double check if we have the connection, and then once we're in the database, we validate is that the email that we have saved on the database is the same that the API sends us. If it is, we just send the validation, then we pass the response, and then we're able to send the view to the user that it's the corresponding view. So as I said before, if you haven't watched how the API works, just go to the front-end implementation and you will be able to see that. Now we are here on the code. So this is the Ajax code that we have on the front end, and the way that the Ajax code works is that it calls a controller and a method within the controller. Since we are in the Google API, this is the implementation for the Google API, we call the controller login once we have the email, and we'll decide to go to the Google account login method. When we do that, right here we are in the controllers and the login controller, and we have the Google account login implementation, and you can see that you have here all the verification needed to double check if to actually being able to do the verification. Something that this will ask in order to get to the database is going to take you to get logged by user email, and this is going to take you to the next layer. This layer is in the business layer, as you saw on the case diagram, and then when we are here in the guest layer, you always have to put this in the interface. Super important for you. If you don't put that new method on the interface, the program won't work. So whenever you have that ready, the only thing that you need to do is verify if the same process that you have within Google account is the same that you have for all the other accounts as well. We can now see the implementation. Now, when we went to the definition, we were saying just how it was defined within the interfaces. Now we're going to the implementations, and we're seeing that this is actually taking us to the business layer, but to the login manager. So in the login manager, the thing that we are doing is just following the protocol of the login in order to get the view of this user. And we can see here that this is going to take us to the endpoint. The endpoint is already the point within the data access. So after we have this, it will send us to it will send us to the login services. And then when we are here on the login services, that is get logged by user by Google email, and again you're gonna see that you have all the other social media methods here. You see that once you're here, it's gonna take you to the login repository, and this is just to get the information. You can see that it's taking you to the login repository, and it's telling you, hey, give me the Google email that is in the login repository and double check if this is true. If it is, okay, return the login. If it is not, then you're not able to log in. The logic for this is really simple. Something else that we had to do was add this to the migration. So whenever you are adding new stuff to the database, you always have to be clear that you have it on the migration. You can see right here that we have adding link in Facebook, adding the Instagram email. We have add Google email right here. So all these things are things that you have to do in order for this to work. But yeah, this is basically the process that we had to do to get the API running. Also, after doing the Google account login in this, you also have to add a controller. Let me see where I can send you the controller. You also have to add a Google registration within the login repository, and this will help you to get the Boolean value to return if this is true or not, and if you are able to log in. Basically, what this is going to do is whenever the Google email matches, then you need the login ID to retrieve the information from the database and actually send the viewer for that specific user. So yeah, that's something that you have to do within the login services. This method over here, and also the methods that you have on the top. Hopefully this was helpful to you, and if you have any questions, my contact information was at the beginning of the video. So thank you very much for watching.